What's up, everybody? We're here to go over UFC Vegas 87, Rozenstruik versus Gaziev. But real quick, I'm going to go over the results for UFC 298, the betting results. Um, finally had a pretty good card, made some money. These are my posted bets, the ones I gave out ahead of time. Had a one-unit play on Danny Barlow that turned out pretty good, man. I was a little worried at first. I thought maybe he was going to go out there and slow down a little bit when it was getting late into the fight, but as soon as Josh Quinlan started chasing him down, really trying to get him out of there, I mean, he really just started countering really nice and just, I mean, put him away. That was crazy. Um, I did have a play on Justin Taffa, but the opponent got changed to Junior Taffa, so that one didn't get I didn't rebet that. And I'm glad I didn't because Junior Taffa looked terrible, a glory kickboxer that can't take a leg kick. That was kind of shocking. But then and then I had a play on Ribeiro. It was just $100 play. That one didn't hit. And then I had a two fight parlay that was Nakamura and Lemos. That was a plus 105, and that was a half unit play. So came out with some good profit there. I really only lost $100 on Ribeiro, and then I had a three fight parlay that hit. I didn't post this one ahead of time. This is one that I just kind of threw together, shortly before the fight started. Um, and yeah, I mean it was a three fight parlay: Nakamura, Duvashvili, and Barlow, and it cashed for $1,394. Um, and then I wanted to point this out because on this here, man, this is some prop bets that I posted. Now I parlayed all these together, and obviously this didn't hit because I had Ribeiro to win by knockout or DQ on here. Um, but usually I would bet all these separately. I was just kind of messing around. I've been trying to put props out there more because I know a lot of people bet props, and I think if I ever get my Patreon, started, I'll start, doing all the prop stuff on there or whatever. But if you look at this, Andrew Lee Maverick to go the distance, that would have hit. Um, Volkanovski versus Taporia not to go the distance, that would have hit. Barlow by knockout, TKO or DQ, that was a plus 150, that would have hit. Anthony Hernandez by submission or Roman Kopylov by TKO, that one would have hit as well. So I was only one away from all of these hitting, but either way, man, it was just a little something. I didn't even really. This is something I put together in like just a couple minutes, just playing around. I only put $20 on it, so it's not like I took a big loss. But those are just some of the props that I would have attacked, if I was prop betting, really hard on this card. And anything else that I need to pull up right now? I think that's it, man. And let's get over here to the card. First off, please like and subscribe, guys. It would really help me out a lot. And thank you all for watching and caring what I have to say. If you're new to the channel, what I do is I go through and give out all the picks for this card, and then I give out my bets at the end of the video. If you're not interested in watching my videos, you just want to see my picks and my bets, you can go over to my social medias. Highkick_fight picks is TikTok and Instagram, and then there's a Facebook group, High Kick Fight Picks on Facebook. Pretty easy to find. I'll post the link, man. Sometimes I forget. I mean to do it. Post the link in the comments. And please feel free to post whatever you guys want in that group, man. Anything MMA related, your bets, whatever. I mean, I want to see everybody's stuff. I don't want to just be me posting in there by myself all the time. So, uh, what else, man? Anything else? I think that's going to be it. And let's get into this card. First up, we got Christian Leroy Duncan taking on Claudio Ribeiro. And Duncan is 28 years old. He's 6'2" with a 79-inch reach. He is 9-1 and 2-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 220 favorite. Yeah, so the UFC, man, it seems like they're giving Duncan some easy matchups now because they want him. I think they want him to succeed. I think they're trying to build him up. I mean, Petrosian beat him. So then they gave him Tululan, and Tululan hasn't done well in the UFC. Everyone has beaten him. Now they're giving him a guy who's been knocked out twice in the UFC. So either Duncan and his team are really smart at picking their opponents, or the UFC is really pushing Duncan and wanting to build him up. Duncan has a lot of unorthodox striking that he does, and we saw in the Petrosian fight that against another kind of high level kickboxer, that stuff wasn't as effective. I just kind of looked like in that fight anyway. I mean, I know it works for him sometimes, but it kind of looked ridiculous out there throwing all that stuff, and none of it was landing, and he was just kind of tired himself out throwing all these big movements and stuff like that. He likes to have a lot of space to throw all that crazy stuff, and you could tell that he's still developing the wrestling and the grappling part of his game. When he takes the fight serious and throws more technical stuff, like good straight punches instead of a bunch of spinning attacks and stuff like that, he can be very effective. He's got a very long reach. He's long, rangy. He's going to have a 2.5 inch reach or 2 inch reach advantage. Sorry, and he's great with his elbows in the clinch up against the cage. He's the way better striker here, more technical and fast and explosive. He switches stances back and forth a lot. Very good footwork. Very creative. 7 wins by knockout. 1 win by submission. And he had a very long amateur career as well, man. He went 17-6 as an amateur. Of course, he beat the crap out of Tallulah, man. And I think this is a good matchup for him too. He has all the advantages here, the striking. As long as Ribeiro can't take him down, he should have success. With his wide variety of kicks and those are his best weapons, really. His kicks, his question mark kicks, and stuff like that, and the way he sets up all of his strikes. And he's taking on Claudio Ribeiro. He is 31 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. He is 11-4 and 1-2 in the UFC. And he's a plus 185 underdog. And 11 wins by knockout. Every single one of his wins have been by knockout. This guy hits hard, man. Lots of power, but I think this is a bad matchup for him. His path to victory would be look for the takedowns, but he doesn't really fight that way. He at times will sit back and wait and look for the counters, and he can't really do that against Duncan. Duncan is too good, too accurate, and too good at countering and has so long of a reach that he's not going to be able to just sit back and wait on Duncan to leave an opening. He does better when he's pushing forward and throwing that power, and that's my only suggestion, really, is that he could really just, if he went out there and got in Duncan's face and didn't give him any space and just kind of nonstop throwing unless he thinks he can get the takedowns, I would just say, pressure Duncan and don't give him a chance to get anything off and just try to knock him out quickly. And if he doesn't do that, I don't really see him getting the win here. I'm going to be taking Duncan to get the win by knockout round 2. Next up, we got Loik Razabov taking on Abdul Karim Al-Sawadi. And Loik is 33 years old. He's 5'11 with a 69-inch reach. He is 17-5-1 and 1-1 in the UFC. And he's a plus 140 underdog. Yeah, this guy had a good showing in his debut against Ribovics, but then he missed weight and got destroyed by Mateus Rebecki. And his legs, got so damaged from calf kicks that he could barely stand. And his cardio looked really bad. He's a big, strong guy for sure. Very big for the weight class, muscle-wise. And in his debut, he showed that if your takedown defense isn't up to par, he could take advantage of that. Hits real hard. He had nothing for Rebecki though at all, man. And so it comes down to how good this new guy is going to be. Both these guys train at great gyms. Loik is at Killcliff and Abdul is at Fortis. Close to where I live, over in Dallas. And Loik does have a lot of high level experience. He's fought in the PFL. He has 7 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission. He's only been finished once, which was in his last fight. I don't really think very highly of his striking, but he does have, pretty big power. It is hard to go with a guy who just looked like he just did in his last fight. So I would expect Al-Sawadi to go out and attack those leg kicks as well. Al-Sawadi is 28 years old. He's 5'8 with a 69-inch reach. He is 15-3, and this is going to be his UFC debut. He's a minus 160 favorite. I think this guy has the longest name in the UFC, so he's got a big advantage there. Outside of the UFC, I think, outside the UFC, I actually think Brave FC and M1 Global are where some of the more skilled fighters have come from in the past. This guy fought in Brave, won 5 in a row, and then he got knocked out twice. All 3 of his losses have been by knockout. Keep that in mind. He's coming off a win on the Contender Series over a 12-1 guy. I think he was a big underdog there as well. Abdul has 8 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. He's really good at mixing in the takedowns, pressures forward, throws big shots. He just has to be careful rushing in, man, really in this matchup. He was a big underdog in his last fight, great footwork. These guys have the same reach. Al-Sawadi throws nice combinations, hits very hard, uses a lot of feints to set up his strikes. This is definitely going to be his toughest fight so far in his career. Great in and out movement. But this guy, both these guys have been billed as wrestlers in the past, so I really don't. I expect that to kind of cancel, themselves out and basically be a kickboxing match. And if that's the case, from what I've seen, I got Abdul to win that, with his speed and the striking advantage. He's more technical, he's more fast. So I'll take him to win. I'll take him to win by knockout round three. Once Loic is nice and tired, he's probably going to land a big shot and put him out. Next up, we got Muhammad Yahya taking on Brendan Marotte. And Yahya is 29 years old. He's 5'9" with a 73-inch reach. He is 12-4 and 0-1 in the UFC. He's a minus 125 favorite. Yeah, this guy, in his debut against, I guess he went into the debut with Trevor Peek, a favorite, and Peek kind of beat him everywhere, man. And that was surprising because we've seen in the past that Peek has a lot of holes in his game, and Yahya couldn't capitalize on them. So Yahya does have 7 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. He will have a 3-inch reach advantage in this fight. His takedown defense didn't look very good in his last fight. I didn't really see much to like in that fight, man. He looked okay on the regional scene, fighting guys with bad records. He's been submitted a few times. That was a nice body kick. He kept getting his leg swept out from under him when he got hit with a leg kick. So, not much to like, but he may be fighting somebody that's worse than he is. We don't really know. There's a lot of unknowns about, Brendan Marotte. And Marotta is 28 years old. He's 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. He is 8-2 and 0-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 105 underdog. This guy made his debut on short notice against Terrence McKinney and got beat fairly easily, fairly quickly. I think McKinney would do the same thing to Yahya as well, though. Hard to say which one of these guys have fought the better competition. I guess Yahya comes from a more respected organization. Marotte does keep his hands low sometimes. He has good power in his shots. He trains with the New England cartel. Lots of good fighters have come out of there. 5 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. He should look for the takedowns in this fight. Problem is, he doesn't usually go out there and fight that way. He usually strikes and brawls with guys. I had trouble finding any of his recent fights. The latest one that I could find was from 2020. So it's really hard for me to say where he's at. On paper, Yahya is supposed to be the better fighter here, but depending on what the betting line does, if Yahya ends up being a huge favorite, I won't touch that line. For now, I'll pick Yahya to win, but if Marotte ends up being, a sizable underdog, I'll probably take the value on him in my parlays. Nothing straight up, no single bet on him, but maybe in my big parlays, I'll take him as an underdog. But for now, I'll go with Yahya uh, just because on paper he's supposed to be the one that wins this fight. But yeah, I won't be paying a high price for him. So just a lot of unknowns when it comes to Marotte, man. He can come out a completely different fighter and look great. We don't know. So let me know what y'all think. Next up, we got Javid Bassarat taking on Ayman Zahabi. And Javad he's 28 years old. He's 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. He is 14-0. And was he 4-0 in the UFC? 3-0 and 1. 3-0 and 1 no contest in the UFC. He's a minus 450 favorite. So I've made money in the past on both these guys. I've had money on Zahabi in his last 3 fights, some plus money as well. This guy has shown us, he can do it all. Great wrestling, great kickboxing. We're talking about Boss right here, by the way. This guy has shown us that he can do it all. Great wrestling, great kickboxing, dangerous submissions. He beat a 16-0 guy on the Contender Series. All his wins in the UFC have been by decision, but he has 5 knockouts and 6 submissions on his record. He will have a 1-inch reach advantage. It's too bad that his last fight ended the way it did. It's funny how it's never the guy winning, the fight who can't continue from a shot to the nuts. It seems to always be the guy who's getting his ass kicked. And he wasn't, totally dominating that fight, but he was ahead. I think he won the first round. I think he was, on his way to winning a decision. Javad throws great front kicks up the middle, along with the oblique kicks, which is basically a front kick to your knee that hyperextends your knee. Really good head movement, great footwork. He's great everywhere. It just sucks that, Henry, Victor Henry was his toughest opponent, and we didn't really get to see it all the way through. So, other than that, his best win was over Tony Gravely, who's very tough. Bassarat's very accurate, great striking, great striking defense, avoids all the big shots for the most part. He's got some really impressive numbers, man. 61% striking accuracy with 64% striking defense, 50% takedown accuracy with 86% takedown defense. Averages just over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. Lands on average 5.65 strikes per minute while absorbing only 2.50. And he's taken on Ayman Zahabi. I'm kind of secretly a big Ayman Zahabi fan, man. He's really kind of turned his career around. He had two bad losses, way back in the day, and then since he's come back after some time off, he's been putting together some nice wins. Zahabi is 36 years old. He's 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. He is 10-2 and 4-2 in the UFC. He's a plus 350 underdog. And I honestly think this guy is underrated. This is the brother of the guy who coached GSP. This guy grew up in that gym, from the time he was real young. He hasn't been the most active fighter, but I think he's been working very hard, and I think he's made a lot of improvements. He has some legit power in his hands, man, and he will have that advantage in this fight. If he lands a big shot, Javid will probably go out. No doubt about it, because I mean, this dude hits hard. And I'm not saying that Zahabi's 3-fight win streak is super impressive as far as the opponents go, but those two knockouts were legit. He knocked out Draco Rodriguez. Then he fought very safe against Ricky Tercios. Didn't play Tercios' game, just fought smart, didn't get wild, and just kind of countered and landed shots and outvolumed him. And then his knockout of Archie Long, that was a nasty knockout. And he has 5 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. He's only been finished once. He's well-rounded. He's great at fighting smart, great counter-striking. His team comes up with great game plans, man. There's no telling what they'll do here. He uses his jab very well. Hasn't really ever gone for takedowns in the UFC yet. But, I guess why would you if you have that kind of power in your hands? He shows 44% striking accuracy with 72% striking defense, which may be the best I've ever seen. Or I think there's one other person on this card that has better than that. And those are the two most that I've ever seen as far as striking defense. But if you watch his hands, the way he holds his hands and the way he deflects punches with his arms and stuff is very good. Not a lot of people can do it like he does. He shows 75% takedown defense, lands 3.04 strikes per minute on average while absorbing 3.40. That doesn't line up with the whole, 72% striking defense, so I wonder what that's about. But he's barely ate any shots in his last 3 fights, so maybe that's why. The line is so high on Bosserat, there's not a lot of money to be made. I agree, Javid has, the advantages in a lot of areas. Zahabi does have the power advantage, and maybe even the striking advantage. But if Zahabi can keep it on the feet, he could knock Javid out. But I'm going to pick Javid to win this fight by decision. Maybe get some takedowns and control time and win that way. But I'm going to be, secretly rooting for Zahabi, man, and I'll probably make an underdog play with Zahabi on it, and maybe a couple other guys just in case something crazy happens. For the value. Next up, we got Vinicius Oliveira take on Giannis Gamora. And Vinicius is 28 years old. He's 5'9" with a 70.5-inch reach. He is 19-3, and this is going to be his UFC debut. He's a minus 177 favorite. And this guy has 15 wins by knockout and 2 wins by submission. He's only gone to a decision twice. And all 3 of his losses have been by knockout. So there's something to worry about there. But his chin looks pretty solid here lately. So, what does that tell you? That it tells you without even watching the tape. Looking at that, this guy fights. Very wildly, brawls, those big shots, those heavy shots. He's fought some all right competition on his way to the UFC as well. Man, he hasn't. The guys that he's been beaten don't have terrible records. He's going to have a 1.5-inch reach advantage here. He's coming off a nasty knockout victory on the Contender Series. Did I just repeat myself? Probably. He throws shots from awkward angles, very creative. Throws a lot of crazy kicks, jump kicks, and stuff like that. Throws heavy leg kicks, switches stances a lot. At times he will swing like real. He'll swing real wide, kind of like from the hip, and it leaves openings. So that's something to watch out for. I don't think Gamora is going to be the one to take advantage of that. Oliveira fights. He fights very wild. He's very fun to watch, man. I mean, he's definitely not gonna. He's gonna be a fan favorite for sure. His takedown defense has looked pretty good so far. If he tightens up some things, I would think he would be pretty unstoppable, man. And he does have a loss on his record to Christian Quinones, who's had mixed success in the UFC. I'm curious to see how these guys size up to each other, man. Since Giannis is coming down to 135 for this fight, both these guys would be pretty big. bantamweights. I mean, Oliveira looked like a really big. I mean, he looked like a featherweight out there on his fight in the Contender Series. So, uh, and he's taking on Giannis Gamora. He is 29 years old. He's 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. He is 12-2 and 0-1 in the UFC. He's a plus 152 underdog. And this guy's no joke either, man. He went 3-0 in Brave FC, fought over in UAE Warriors, um, which is where Oliveira came from. So this is a fight that could have happened either way, even if these guys didn't go to the UFC. Giannis has 3 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. He's coming off a loss to William Gomes in his debut. Um, he's a pretty big featherweight himself, man. So I would be interested to see him at 135. He's Faraz Zaim's teammate. He may have the cleaner, less wild striking out of these two, but I expect him to look for takedowns in this fight. I don't like how he leaves his head and chin up on the center line. If he can't get, the takedowns, he will probably look to hold Oliveira up against the cage and wear on him. I saw him fighting that way in a few fights, on the regional scene. I just don't know if his wrestling is going to be good enough to get Oliveira down and keep him down. Now, maybe if he has better cardio, he can come on late in the fight. Most Oliveira's wins have been early finishes. I'm going to be going with Oliveira here. I'm going to take the win by knockout round 1. I think he'll go out there and draw Giannis into a brawl and land a big shot probably. Um, and it's going to be a big debut for him in the UFC, man. Next up, we got Joel Alvarez taking on Ludovic Klein. This is one I haven't even quite made my mind up on yet. Joe Alvarez is 31 years old. He's 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. He is 20-3 and 5-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 180 favorite. This is a fun fight, good matchmaking. Joel's a huge lightweight, probably the biggest in the UFC, other than Bahamundez, but Joel might even be bigger than him. I don't know. I mean, as far as size wise, they're both the same height. Joel has 3 wins by knockout and 17 wins by submission. He's never won a fight by decision. His losses in the UFC were to tough competition, Sarukian, Ismagulov. Um, he will have a 4.5-inch reach advantage in this fight. And this guy has gotten a lot better with his striking, good at time and knees when his opponents are coming in. He has terrible takedown defense. I think he has 0% takedown defense. But, mostly because he doesn't mind being on his back. He's dangerous. He submit a lot of people off of his back. He was landing his jab a lot in his last fight on Mark Diakase. Likes to finish all his combinations with a kick. If his takedown defense was better, he would be unstoppable, man. He's never defended a takedown in the UFC, man, but he has a 100% finish rate. So, I mean, it's a toss-up, man. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like the more elite guys, you're probably not going to be able to submit them off your back. So, I mean, you're just going to get beat up for 3 rounds. He's been known for his grappling in the past, but his striking has looked great. In his last fight, it was looking good. That's why Mark Diakase started trying to wrestle with him. It will be interesting to see how this fight plays out. Joel shows 47% striking accuracy with 50% striking defense. Never attempted to take down, like I said, and has a average fight time of 6 minutes and 44 seconds. It's scary to put money on an incomplete fighter, man. This guy should be shooting takedowns and stuffing them, And I have no doubt that if this fight goes to the ground, Alvarez will submit Klein. But will Klein be that stupid? I don't know. And he's taking on Ludovic Klein. He's 29 years old, 5'7" with a 72.5-inch reach. He is 24-1 and 4-2-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 155 underdog. And Klein is very fortunate that in his last fight as well, he fought another really tall guy. Probably the 2 tallest guys in the lightweight division. So he's probably prepared for that. But Mahamundez is a kickboxer type style, not dangerous on the ground at all. Klein was gifted with that draw against Jai Herbert because he was getting his ass kicked in that fight. He has a kickboxing background, really nice striking, 8 wins by knockout, 8 wins by submission. He has been submitted twice, and one of those was by Nate Landwehr. And I'm sure if Nate could do it, Alvarez could. But he's got big power, even though he's only had 1 finish in the UFC, and he's made a lot of improvements. And I've gone back and forth on this guy from thinking really highly of him to thinking he sucks, and then he came out and beat my guy, Ignacio Bahamundez last time out, and he definitely worked on his wrestling and his cardio. He's jacked and ripped, and he's the more technical striker, the more credentialed striker as well. Klein has been using a lot of wrestling, and he would be dumb to do that against Alvarez. If he hurts Alvarez and follows him down to the ground, he'll probably get submitted. Um, he will have to make Alvarez stand up, man, and not do what he normally does and jump into that guard and whatnot. But I kind of want to pick Klein because we just saw him beat up a guy this size easily. But like I said, it's two different styles of fighters. I would say that Alvarez has the better wins out of these two, mainly the win over Thiago Moises. If Klein fights smart, though, he could definitely win this. And I've been struggling with this pick, um, just mainly because it's hard to pick a guy who has such terrible takedown defense, man. And Alvarez, and I know he's the favorite. But if Klein goes out there and fights smart, I mean, I think Klein will probably, unless he has trouble getting around the reach. I mean, oh man, I don't know. I think Alvarez has a little bit more of a reach advantage than Bahamondes did. Um, I don't know that I'll include this fight on anything, man. Uh, I don't know that I'll include this fight on anything. I'm gonna take Klein. I'm gonna take Klein, man. I'm gonna see if he fights that same game plan, minus following him to the ground. Um, yeah, I'll take the underdog. Fuck it. He just beat up a tall guy. He might be able to do it again. Next up, we got Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Begzat Alkaman, Almakan, Begzat Almakan. uh, and this is interesting, man. That they're so desperate to get Nurmagomedov a fight that they're grabbing a guy that's never fought in the UFC before and putting him in there. But I understand why. This guy's a big deal, outside the UFC. Umar Nurmagomedov is 28 years old. He's 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. He is 16-0 and 4-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 700 favorite. And I'm excited to finally see Umar get a fight again here. It's been over a year, but like I said, it's just a debuting fighter. So I mean, if everyone's gonna run from Umar and then just give him a title shot, fuck it. We know he'll get there anyway one day. Just throw him in there. Um, or give him, Devashvili or something, unless Devashvili don't want to fight him. Um, either way, he has 2 wins by knockout and 7 wins by submission. He could do it all, man. And for everyone that thought he wasn't like a great striker with the hands or whatever, he proved them wrong. When he knocked out Barcelos, he has amazing kicks, great question mark kicks, side kicks, really good kicking with his lead leg. So a lot of people don't expect that and aren't used to that. It's hard to get a read on. He's going to be the bigger guy in this fight. He shows 70% striking accuracy with 75% striking defense. Which is a little bit higher than the one I said earlier. 75. I think the other one was 72%. His is 75% striking defense. 45% takedown accuracy with 100% takedown defense. Lands 4.85 strikes per minute on average while absorbing 0.73, which is the lowest number that I've ever seen. Averages 4.28 takedowns per 15 minutes with an average fight time of 7 minutes and 54 seconds. Umar has the better kicks. He's probably better on the ground after watching the tape. The wrestling's going to be there for him, and that's how he's going to want to approach this fight probably, if he can. If he can get the takedowns. Um, and he's taking on Begzat Almakan, and he is 26 years old. He's 5'7". We don't have a reach on him for here. I forgot to get it when I was doing the tape. He's 17-1. This is going to be his UFC debut. He's a plus 500 underdog, and so I'm not familiar with this guy, surprisingly, or I wasn't. I guess he just kind of flew under my radar. This is another guy coming out of Kazakhstan, and there's been a lot of them lately, man, and most of them have come from Brave FC. The Brave FC organization, which is one that I do pay attention to. That's how I was familiar with some of the other guys that have been coming in. But this guy fought in Octagon. He had one fight in UAE Warriors. I just never caught him, man. So I was a little bit surprised that I didn't know about this guy when I was watching the tape on him. This guy has actually fought a lot of guys with decent records. This guy's a great fighter, man. 13 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. Um, he's shown it all. Getting takedowns, using his wrestling in some of his fights. I went back and watched his last fight that went to decision. He fought a 14-1 Moro Mastro Marini. I don't know how to say his name properly, but 14-1 guy. And Bezic dropped him twice in the first round, took him down several times. Great trip and body lock takedowns. His cardio looked great. Didn't slow down in the third round. Great kickboxing. He's not invincible though, man. And I saw him, and I think at least two, maybe three of the fights, I saw him get hurt a few times, even dropped, and he would just kind of turn around and use his wrestling to get the fight going back in his favor, and then he would end up getting the knockout. So, yeah, he got dropped, but he would reverse position, sweep, and wind up getting a takedown, catch his breath, and then knock the guy out in the next round. Um, and yeah, so he has great ground and pound, and his one loss was by submission. He's currently on a 9-fight win streak. If he has the advantage in this fight, he may be better with his hands, with his boxing, and he's probably got a power advantage. But Umar is hard to hit, and it'd be cool, it'd be dope if this guy came in and beat Umar in his first fight in the UFC. That would be crazy. The value is so high on this guy that there's no way that if I made an underdog parlay, I wouldn't put him in it, along with Ayman Zahabi. So I probably will be doing that. Um, and I haven't actually made it yet, so I don't have it to show you guys yet. But I'll post it on my social medias when I make it. Um, where was I at? Where was I at? I'm picking Umar to win. Obviously, I think if he wins, it'll be by submission, probably like round 3 late. But Umar needs to be careful, man, and take this guy down because this dude is no joke on the feet. I think Bescott has a great future in the UFC, win or lose, man. And he's very exciting. Looking forward to the fight. Umar might have to make it a boring fight. We might not be able to get to see all the good things that Bezcat or Bekzot could do. But he's gonna have a bright future in the UFC. Very fun to watch. Next up, we got Matt Schnell taking on Steve Ursig, and Matt Schnell is 34 years old. He's 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. He is 16-7 and 6-5 in the UFC, and he's a plus 250 underdog. And yeah, Matt's got all the skills. He's got fast striking. He's got decent wrestling. But we've seen him finish both by submission and by knockout a lot in the UFC. And he at times has really struggled to make weight and looks terrible at the weigh-ins. Had to shave his head to make weight before. Um, he has could be why his chin seems to be so terrible sometimes. Even in his last win that he got over who was that? Shate? Oh, Sumadarji. Sorry, different weight class. Even his win over Sumadarji, he almost got finished several times, got dropped, and ended up coming back getting the win. But he has a good jiu-jitsu, 9 wins by submission, 2 wins by knockout, and he will have a 1.5-inch reach advantage. And he pushes a tough pace, man. I mean, he had he had good takedowns, very dangerous off of his back, good ground and pound from top position, good jiu-jitsu. I think he's worked on his head movement, or I hope he's worked on his head movement. And he has a bad habit of when he gets rocked, he will just kind of wade forward and just brawl instead of trying to collect himself, which is how he gets finished a lot. And he's definitely fought the tougher competition out of these two. He always moves forward, uses a lot of pressure in his game plan. Um, hasn't fought in over a year. And I think Matt would do well to use his wrestling and jiu-jitsu in this fight because he does have great submissions. He just doesn't fight that way that often. He may have a speed advantage in this fight. Ursid seems to just have kind of good basics when it comes to striking, whereas Matt is more wild and explosive. Um, he shows 40% striking accuracy with 56% striking defense, 44% takedown accuracy with 47% takedown defense. Lands on average 4.24 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.46 strikes per minute. And as far as the striking, Matt's going to have to make this ugly and stay on Ursig. That's how Costa was able to land some big shots on Ursig in his last fight. Um, and he's taking on Steve Ursig. He's 28 years old, 5'8" with a 68.5-inch reach. He is 11-1 and 2-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 300 favorite. He came in on his debut and fought, David Dvorak, who's been up in the rankings for a long time and won dominantly. We did see him have a little trouble against Costa last time out. He got clipped with some big shots. Um, he has good basics. Like I said, with his boxing, not a big power puncher, only 1 win by knockout, but 6 wins by submission. Uses his jab very well, has good grappling, doesn't overthrow on his shots, knows when to use full power on his punches. Great at flowing from one position to the other on the ground. Has the cleaner, more technical striking out of these two. He doesn't rush it, even when he hurts guys. He doesn't run in and get clipped with a big shot. If you're standing at range and just trying to pick each other apart with Ursig back and forth, Ursig's gonna pick you apart. He's gonna get the better of that. He fights well in the clinch, good knees in close. He's never been finished. Of course, I'm going to be taking Steve Ursig to win this fight. He may finally get a finish this time, since Matt's been finished a lot. So I'm going to take Ursig to win. I'm going to take him to win by knockout, round 2. Next up, we got Alex Perez taking on Muhammad Makayev. Perez is 31 years old. He's 5'6" with a 65.5-inch reach. He is 24-7 and 6-3 in the UFC. He's a plus 205 underdog. And yeah, I don't understand how this guy is still so high up in the rankings at this point. He's had fight after fight fall out, hasn't fought in a year and a half, and he's on a 2-fight losing streak, both of which were to champions, though. He was finally going to fight Manel Kopp last year, and then on the fight day, he had medical issues and didn't fight. He has 5 wins by knockout and 7 wins by submission. Every one of his UFC wins in the every one of his wins in the UFC have been over guys who are now cut from the organization. His best win was probably over Jalcier Formiga. Hope I'm saying his first name right. Which was his last win back in 2020. And he won that fight with leg kicks, man. So he does have good calf kicks. His last 2 fights, he got taken down and submitted pretty easily, or got his back taken, or got the choke put in pretty easily. I think he was shooting a bad takedown on Figueiredo, stuck his head in the guillotine. He has great calf kicks, like I said, good boxing, very fast. Early on in his career, they were saying he was a wrestler. If he is a wrestler, he's got bad takedown defense and bad submission awareness and defense. He's been submitted 5 times. He may have the better striking and the power advantage on the feet, but I don't think he's going to be able to keep it there very long. He does have nice head movement. I do like his striking, very aggressive, pushes a good pace. He shows 48% striking accuracy with 60% striking defense. 44% takedown accuracy with 78% takedown defense. It says he averages 2.84 takedowns per 15 minutes, lands 4.67 strikes per minute on average while absorbing 3.14. And it says he has a average fight time of 5 minutes and 48 seconds. And he's taking on Muhammad Makayev. He is 23 years old. He's 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. He is 10-0 and 5-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 260 favorite. I'd say jump on this price while you can. He has 1 win by knockout and 6 wins by submission. His wrestling and cardio are his best weapons, great submissions. He's going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage. I think he's going to go out and get the takedowns and find a submission, man. It's pretty simple. I don't think he's going to give Perez a chance to get going on the feet. Makai has been very active. He's probably got the best wrestling in the division. He shows 51% striking accuracy with 52% striking defense. 53% takedown accuracy, which it doesn't say what his takedown defense is on the UFC website, but I believe he's only been taken down once in the UFC. I think Tim Elliott took him down once. He averaged 6.47 takedowns per 15 minutes, and then which is a really high number, especially if you're like a prize picks guy. You can bet that on there, bet the over. Averages 1.29 submission attempts per 15 minutes. I've got Makayev. The price is good. Jump on it while you can. I'm taking Makayev to win by submission round 1, just like the last 2 guys that fought Perez. Next up, we got Eric Anders taking on Jamie Pickett. And Eric Anders is 36 years old. He's 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. He is 15-8 and 7-8 in the UFC, and he's a minus 330 favorite. 9 wins by knockout and 1 win by submission. This is another like no-brainer for me. Anders is tough. He hits very hard. He's very athletic and explosive. He's got the better wins. He's fought the tougher competition. Even though he's had some losses, man, some of those have been close fights. The Iron Turtle fight was a close fight. He's really, really well rounded. He's rounded out his game. He's been competing in grappling tournaments. He honestly has all the advantages in this fight. The better wrestling, fights well in the clinch, big power advantage. I think he can do anything he wants in this fight. And this is going to be a good fight, to get him back in the win column. I feel like his conditioning has gotten a lot better over his past few fights. He's really been showing that. Great elbows in close. I think he's only been finished once in the UFC, and it was by submission by Andre Muniz. I think that's when he started really working on his grappling. He's been coming in looking for the finish in his last few fights. It's been very exciting. I'm a big Anders fan for sure. Great dirty boxing and close. He shows 48% striking accuracy with 50% striking defense, 24% takedown accuracy with 80% takedown defense. Lands on average 3.56 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.39. Some work to be done there. Says he averages 1.54 takedowns per 15 minutes as well. So I feel like that's an option for him in this fight. And he's taking on Jamie Pickett. He is 35 years old. He's 6'2 with an 80-inch reach. He is 13-10 and 2-6 in the UFC, and he's a plus 270 underdog. I feel sorry for this guy, man, because he just hasn't been able to get it going in the UFC, man. His two wins, I don't think those guys are even in the UFC anymore. He has 8 wins by knockout and 1 win by submission. He has been finished several times in the UFC. He is a big guy, though. He has a 5-inch reach advantage in this fight. Outside of landing some kind of crazy kick or knee, I mean, it would have to be a big shot to put Anders out, a very big shot. I don't see a way for him to get the win in this fight. I don't see any of the advantages that he may have. I'm sure he will have the speed advantage on the feet. He's probably faster. Maybe that would be something that comes into play, but I just think Anders is going to go out there and bully him in this fight, keep him up against the cage and beat him up until he ends up putting him away with something like a big knee or elbow in close. And I'm taking Anders to win this fight by a second round TKO. Next up, we got the co-main event. Vitor Petrino taking on Tyson Pedro. And Petrino is 26 years old. He's 6'2 with a 77.5-inch reach. He is 10-0 and 3-0 in the UFC. And he's a minus 260 favorite. So I think it's crazy how much success this guy is having and how good he is, and how much better he's getting, because you can tell he's still developing, parts of his game. I mean, he has that really big power in his hands, but not the most technical striking, but it's getting better and better. And in the Praggnio fight, he was getting outstruck on the feet a little bit, so he took him down and dominated him on the ground and submitted him. He doesn't have a wrestling background, but his wrestling is like really damn good. And a lot of that has to do with him being so strong. He could just kind of throw guys around like they're nothing. 7 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. He's also very fast and explosive. He's never been finished, even as an amateur. The guy that Petrino just knocked out beat Tyson Pedro, Modestas Bukalkas. And he doesn't put out the most volume, but his punches count when he lands. He was using his jab very well last time out. This guy's the real deal, man. He's getting better and better, and he's fighting patiently, unlike most guys with that kind of power. He has big advantages on the ground and with his wrestling in this fight. He shows 49% striking accuracy with 44% striking defense, 71% takedown accuracy, which is a great number, and 68% takedown defense. Lands on average 4.15 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.65, and he has an average fight time of 10 minutes and 50 seconds. He's taking on Tyson Pedro. He is 32 years old. He's 6'3 with a 79-inch reach. He is 10-4 and 6-4 in the UFC. He's a plus 205 underdog. 5 wins by knockout and 5 wins by submission. He's never won a fight by decision. He lost both times he went to a decision. And one thing I see immediately is all 3 of Tyson's recent wins have been over the worst guys in the division. 2 of them for sure aren't with the UFC anymore. He fought Ike Villanueva, terrible Harry Hunsucker, and Anton Turcal. I don't know if they cut Turcal yet, but I know they cut the other 2. He has, big power, nice kickboxing, good submissions for a big guy. He will have a 1.5-inch reach advantage in this fight. His cardio looked terrible in the Bukalkas fight, which is why he lost. Bukalkas was way too fast for him. And I think Bukalkas even might have got a takedown in that fight. I don't remember. All of his wins have been by first round finish. He may have the more technical striking out of these 2. They both hit hard. He has trouble with guys with good, with good fast footwork. Sorry, I can't talk. He shows 61% striking accuracy, which is a good number, and 55% striking defense, 36% takedown accuracy with 53% takedown defense. He lands on average 3.11 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.53, and he averages just under 1 takedown per 15 minutes. As well, he has 1.17 knockdowns per 15 minutes as well. And his average fight time is 6 minutes and 24 seconds. So, the way that Petrino fights is perfect to beat Pedro. In my opinion, all Petrino has to do is get out of the first round. Tyson is dangerous on the feet early, so Petrino needs to go out there, clinch, and either get the takedowns or hold Pedro up against the cage and just wear on his gas tank. And then he can do whatever he wants after that. Uh, Tyson doesn't have anything off his back, I don't think. I got Petrino to win this fight by submission, maybe round 2 or 3. I think he's probably going to go out and look to use his wrestling. Um, I mean, he might play around on the feet for a little bit, but Pedro is dangerous, so I think he's going to use his wrestling again and get Pedro down and dominate. Next up, we got the main event. Woohoo! Right, uh, Jarzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. Rozenstruik is 35 years old. He's 6'2" with a 78-inch reach. He is 13-5 and 7-5 in the UFC, and he's a plus 115 underdog. And once again, I don't understand this matchup or why it would be the main event. I guess just because they're heavyweights. I don't know. This is only Gaziev's second fight in the UFC, and he's fighting this far up in the rankings. Don't understand that. Rozenstruik has 12 wins by knockout. He's never won a fight by submission. He has a kickboxing background. Heavy hitter. He's been taken down in the past and beaten that way. I don't know that I believe that Gaziev's wrestling is as good as Almeida's or Blade's wrestling. Um, but all it takes from Rozenstruik is one punch, and you're out. He probably has the bigger power and then the better striking as far as the hands go. He shows 46% striking accuracy with 55 or 45% striking defense. He's never shot a takedown in the UFC, and he has 74% takedown defense. He lands on average 2.81 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.15, and he averages 1.14 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And he's taking on Shamil Gaziev. He is 34 years old. He's 6'4" with a 78-inch reach, 12-0 and 1-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 125 favorite. Um, he's 2 inches taller, but they got the same reach. I do think he's a lot faster with his strikes. 8 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. Most of his wins have been quick first round finishes. He's more well rounded. He can wrestle, but I don't think he likes to wrestle. I think he gets tired. In the past, people have kind of questioned his cardio. I'm kind of tempted to pick Rozenstruik here. It's a 5-round fight, so if Gaziev can't get him out of there in the first few rounds, Rozenstruik may come in late in the fight and win. On paper, Gaziev is a smart pick. It's a no-brainer. He's more well-rounded, and Rozenstruik has been taken down and beaten that way before. The price is good either way you go here. Um, I'll pick Gaziev to win by submission. I mean, that's the smart pick, the smart bet. But I'll probably have like a reverse parlay and put Rozenstruik in there in a parlay um, as well. Just something small. Maybe put him on the underdog parlay or something crazy like that. Um, because I mean, fuck, he's been around. He's fought the tougher competition. Who's to say that he won't knock Gaziev out, man? So, and that's it for my picks, guys. As far as my bets go, my bets are I got a Vitor Petrino and Muhammad Makayev 2 fight parlay. That's a minus 105, and that's a 1.5 unit play. I got a play on Oliveira at minus 165. That's a 1 unit play. And then I got a 3 fight parlay that's Eric Anders, Christian Leroy Duncan, and Nurmagomedov. That's a plus 117, and that's a half-unit play. And as far as parlays go, guys, I haven't actually got to put my parlays in yet because they don't have all the lines up on Bovada yet. I use Bovada mostly for everything. That's where all my money is at right now. Sometimes I use Bet Online, but I had pulled all my money off there a couple months ago, so I was able to screenshot a few and write down the odds and kind of tell you all the idea of what I got going, but I haven't actually got to put them in yet. Um, and the first one is a 5 fight parlay. It's Duncan, Petrino, Makayev, Eric Anders, Nurmagomedov, and that's a plus 309. And then to that, I added Steve Ursig and Oliveira. That's a plus 787. And at this point, I couldn't screenshot all these people in here at once, but I was able to put them together and write the odds down so I could tell you. So I mean, this is a 7 fight parlay. It's Duncan, Petrino, Makayev, Anders, Nurmagomedov, and Steve Ursig and Oliveira, and that's the 787. And then to that, I added Bosserat and Al Sawadi, and that's a plus 1706. And then the last one I added Gaziev, and that's a plus 3,151. And like I said, I'm gonna have an underdog parlay, at least something ridiculous with like with Beskot on it, and Zahabi, and I don't know if there are gonna be any other underdogs on there, but I'm definitely gonna have something with those guys on it, just because it would be crazy to turn down those odds, um, with that value on it. Um, and that's it as far as my picks go. And I don't think there's been any changes to the UFC Mexico City card. Um, yeah, thank you guys so much, man, for caring what I had to say. Thank you for watching. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Um, I'll post some prop bets probably on my social medias. The day before the fights or whatever. As soon as I can, I will target some of them on here again. See how well we do. Um, and I guess that's it for me, guys. Man, I hope you guys win some money. Y'all have a good one, man. I'm out of here.